Hey there, welcome to Grandpa's Coffee Corner. Just finishing my coffee. And I'm going to run out in the garage and work on the 1973 Suzuki TS250. This is the old cylinder over here. Let me throw that over there. As you can see, it's a nasty looking thing. Although it did have a fresh bore on it, and it ran good. Surprisingly well. I was pleasantly surprised when I wrote it. But anyway, this guy here, we're going to retire him, maybe throw him on eBay. But one of the problems it has, you can see this goop down here from the exhaust, is caused in part by this bottom hole that holds the exhaust manifold up here. For some reason, these strip a lot. And this one was no exception. So on this one, the hole was still good. I wipe my hands on my shirt. This one, the hole was still good. So what I did was I drilled and tapped it all the way through. You can see you can do that with no problem. You know, if I move my fingers, you can see that. And so that'll allow me to run a longer bolt. There you go. Wait for the autofocus. That'll allow me to run a longer bolt. Shouldn't have that problem. I don't think I've ever stripped one myself. The other thing I did is, we'll start with this guy. See if we can get autofocus here. As you can see, I'll use this yellow plastic tie if I don't drop it. There's quite a lip from the liner to this secondary ridge to the primary ridge. Yeah, maybe see it this side a little bit better. There you go. And that's just a nasty looking thing. The other thing is in this cylinder, although it looked really nice, there was a lot of casting slag from when they made the cylinder way down in here. Just blotches of this stuff. This cylinder, the old one, was actually in pretty good shape casting wise. But this one here had it. So anyway, as you can see, all I did was blend, get my fat fingers out of the way. I just blend this area here just so it's a smoother flow. And I put the old base gasket up to it and really just kind of blueprinted the transfer ports around there. And I'll do the cases when I go back out there. Doesn't do you much good to match these up and have the cases still small. So that's all I did. And you can see on this one, see, it's just a nice blend. And then, like I said, there's no casting flaws in here, no big hunks of snot in there or anything like how it came. Not worried about polishing them up or anything. All that's good. The other thing I did was, where's my magic plastic tie, is an old 70s trick, and also it's in the Suzuki hop-up manuals on their 250s and T500s, is you raise the exhaust port 1 millimeter and you widen, widen the exhaust port on each side here. There we go. Hard looking down doing this. You widen the exhaust port 0.5 millimeter, which gives you a total 1 millimeter in height, and 50 on each side is 1 millimeter in across the width. And so that should make it run good. The other thing is there's no lip here anymore. There was before. And so it's just a nice, the tie down's not catching on anything. The other thing on these TSTM cylinders, let me hold it up here to the camera, is I blended, there's usually a fairly large hump right here where my fat finger is. Let me get this plastic tie. It's coming in pretty handy. There's usually a fairly large hump right here. And all I'm trying to do right here, and all I'm trying to do is get the air or the exhaust out of the cylinder. You don't want to go too large. One thing when you're doing these things, you got to remember or look at the thickness you have in between here. You know, this is pretty damn hot coming out. You don't want to poke a hole through it or make it to where it gets hot and comes through the cylinder, or through the exhaust port, sorry. The other thing I did was, can't see it, let me get my magic plastic tie. There we go. There was a huge slag running the length of the cylinder. I should have showed you before. Anyway, I took and cleaned that up. I'm not going to polish it or anything. See if I can get the right angle. There we go. But as you can see, it's just a nice smoother flow coming out. The other problem on these things is, I'll see if I can get my little fat finger in here. Right here on the inside, there we go. There's my fat finger. Let's use that magic plastic tie. Right here, there's a pretty good lip too. Just a bump there. And there's still a small one, but not like it was. And with that, I was able to grind that out. And I'm not going to polish it. You can see there's still a, whoops, bumped the camera. You can still, there's still a few little chatter marks from the porting tool. Don't care. It's just a trail bike. I'm trying to get the perfect angle for you. But it should run like it was supposed to run from the factory, with the transfers cleaned up, matched to the cases, the lips and bumps out of the exhaust port. For the intake, there was a pretty good lip. Let me get my magic tie down. Right on the upper part of the intake port. So we got that out. I just once again got some of the slag out. There was a good piece of slag. Let me find it on this side. Here we go. It's easier for me to hold this upside down. There was a good piece of slag right here where the oil injection nozzle was. I mean, it looked like they just tapped it, and they left it hanging there. I know the nozzle does stick out a little ways, but having that big hunk of metal there doesn't really help anything. The other thing is, I just kind of thinned this out a smidge, knifed edge the front of the divider here. See if I can get in there with the magic tie down. Just clean that up. You can see there's still a little bit of wavy marks in there. No big deal. If it was a race bike or something, I would just polish that out, make it nice and smooth. But it's just a trail bike. I just want to move air in, process it, and get it out in a nice smooth fashion. That's all I'm trying to do. And you can see on this, like, it's not a lot of material to work with, so don't go nuts on these things. This one here, I could have easily pulled a little more out, but I'm going for durability. I mean, this is something I'm going to dual sport on lightly, and maybe do a 100-mile trip or something on it, and I want reliability. The old guy, which actually ran good, like I said, you can see where Suzuki kind of matched it up to the nylon spacer. That's really about all I had. So the exhaust, the hump's still there. You can't really tell when you use the magic tie down or plastic tie, but the hump right here is way more pronounced just feeling it than on this cylinder. And what else? I bumped the camera again. The other thing is I was able to find, slide that over, I was able to find a brand new cylinder head for $19 that came with the TS250 hop-up kit. Used to be called the motocross kit. And so, never been used, should be nice, still has a sticker somewhere. Here it is. Yeah. Race head or something like that it says. And I didn't modify the intake. Usually you do if you raise the exhaust. Reason I didn't is I'm using a TM250 piston. This has a 1 millimeter shorter skirt. That'll bring in the extra air I need and let this thing run good without modifying the port. And did I show you the little arrow? I put a little arrow on here. There you go. On the spacer. So flip this guy back over. So when I go to install it on the cylinder, since I've matched this to this, it'll just go on like that. Arrow facing towards, and then I have my smooth flow. And what else do I have? What else old grandpa got in the bike had a nice flexible intake probably original, but it was kind of caved in on this side. So it was actually sucking dirt, even though it had a new bore and piston, had a Wiseco forged piston. But it was actually sucking dirt. So I ordered a new intake, which is nice. You can still get them at Suzuki. And when I went to pull the air filter, it had the original 40-plus-year-old air filter, and it was crumbled in my hands. So ordered the new unifilter. Ta-da. And what else we got in the old bingo bag here? Got a battery for it. It needed a new fuse connector and fuse. You can still get that through Suzuki. I already had the sprockets for the bike. Like I said, I had the 75 I was going to build, but I sold that in Oregon. So anyway, I have a chain of sprockets, brand new. I got a long time ago for a TS250. I just didn't have the counter shaft sprocket seal, and there's an O-ring behind that. If you just replace this and not the O-ring, it may still leak. The other thing that leaks is the carburetor. It is nice and clean on the inside, but it pees gas out unless you shut the fuel off. So carburetor was clean on the inside, and I'm just going to pull it out, clean everything up, blow it out with the air compressor, put the new needle and seat in there, set to float, call it good. And I'm also going to, speaking of air filters, and I was speaking of air filters, I'm going to modify the airbox. Suzuki TS Enduros had the worst airbox design in history. So I'm going to open up, either cut or drill some holes in it. I live in Arizona. You know, no chance of me crossing big raging rivers or anything like that. Be careful of these. These things do break. But anyway, no chance of me crossing any raging rivers or anything like that. So I just want to get some more air in. I know how restrictive the stock airboxes are. Years ago, back in the 70s, I had a 72 TS250, the blue one, the Daytona blue with the white stripe. And I rode it up to Payson, Arizona, about 130, 40 miles away up the mountains. And as I kept climbing, it kept getting slower and slower. I pulled the airbox lid off, and wow, it ran really good. I know it's missing the stud, no big deal. I think I got kind of a discount because they marked this GS250. So paid 20 bucks for the cylinder, not too shabby. And like I said, I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. But anyway, that's it before it goes on the bike. The other good thing about this thing is, one thing, there was a casting flaw. There was another ridge. Where's my magic plastic tie? There was a ridge right here that prevented the crush gasket from butting up against this face here. And so I just kind of ground that down so I could get the gasket in there. And like I said, there's a few little tool marks in there. I mean, if it was something I really cared about, and I just don't want to spend a lot of time on it. It'll run great, way better with just the mods I've done. You can see the intake ports, nice and clean. No lips. These were pretty pronounced. They actually did a poor job matching this cylinder to the liner compared to the old cylinder. But yeah, there was a big lip here. Got those out. Like I said, clean this up. Anyway, I think that's about it. I'm sure I left out something because I am old and forgetful. But anyway, I'm going to get this on the bike today. Oh, I know what I was going to say about exhaust. I do have a brand new in the wrapper aftermarket exhaust to replace the stock one. So that alone, like I said, I'm just trying to move air in, combust it, and then move it out. So having that aftermarket exhaust will help me along. So this, when I get it running, should be a pretty good bike. Good running bike. Like I said, it's a good old scoot. You know, still has the original tires, original trials tires on. And being from Michigan, got the tires still in good shape rubber-wise. I'm going to replace them, of course, but he'll, get the top end back on, new pipe, polish out the cases a little bit. I'll show you how I do that, and get her back on the road, take her out for a run, see how it does. We'll make little changes along as we go. We'll get the battery in it. But yeah, that's where we're sitting. And I will put my magic plastic tie there. And that's it. I'm going to get to work. I got to change and finish all my coffee and get out in the garage, put it together. Thanks a lot. We'll see how this turns out. Bye-bye.